Hey folks, CZ Anderson from Disney Magic Fanatic here, and we're doing our first podcast. As a guest on today's show, I have my sister. Her name's Charis. In the future, we might have other podcast guests, but this one I wanted to do with family. So we're trying something new and unique today that I've never really tried before. I'm kind of excited for it, to fill in the gaps between my flagship video essays and the other stuff I do on this channel. This will be something we can do more often that people can tune into if they want. So without further ado, let's get right into it. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Charis. Like Christian said, I'm his sister, so I'm really excited to be here and to get to talk about Disney with my brother.
I'm so excited too.
Love to do.
Yeah, we both love to talk about Disney, and we have very different perspectives on it too, but in a good way. Like they often reconcile themselves again. So yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you want to talk about?
Sure. Well, I don't know what you want me to say.
I don't know, so they can kind of get a feel for who you are, since I know you, but they don't know you.
Sure. Well, I'm a happy person, and I love art and any form of art, whether that's literature or movies or, I just enjoy it all. And so that's why I like talking about this kind of stuff. And I grew up with you, and we grew up watching Disney and going to Disneyland together, and so it has a really sentimental impact on our lives, I think, and it means a lot to us.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so today the first thing I wanted to talk about is, obviously, since this is going on the YouTube channel, have you seen any of my stuff? And if so, what do you think? And please be gentle.
Of course I've seen your stuff. I'd be kind of a bad sister if I hadn't seen your stuff. But I love it all. My favorite is your Treasure Planet video, just because it's like super visual and it's really well edited, and I enjoy videos like that. But I love all your just your series and like going in depth into stuff that I didn't know about. It's really fun to learn that kind of thing from someone that I know really well and who I know cares a lot about that.
Wow, I didn't know you liked that one that much. I
I love it. It's a good one. It was really cool, and it just seemed like a passion project of sorts. So that was really cool to me. My other favorite, though, is your eras of Disney animation videos. I think those are really cool, just because I really enjoy that subject.
Oh, wow. So. Wow. Yeah, I've learned a lot since then. Like, if you look at the editing for that one, I don't think it holds a candle to the new stuff, and I think the new stuff won't hold a candle to what I make in, 3 months' time or whatever.
It's just getting better and better.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work, too, because and that leads to something else I wanted to make known. I am doing these by myself. I used to make these videos with other people, but just life sort of happened. You were one of those people, actually. And then life sort of happened, and nobody was available anymore. So I pretty much went forward making everything by myself, doing the writing, the research, the editing. Everything from start to finish is just me. I mean, except for this podcast, obviously. Everything from start to finish is all my work, and so that compounds the work 10 times, because a lot of people will, hire editors, and I can't afford that right now. So, I have to do all the editing by hand myself, and so it takes a long time. So it's really frustrating, when it takes so long to make my dreams into realities, but also really fulfilling when it finally happens, Yeah. You just kind of feel this sense of ownership and gratefulness when it all comes to fruition.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah. It just stinks because it takes a long time to create everything, and people comment about it sometime. I think my one of the top commenters on my latest video essay was like, I hope it doesn't take 3 months, and I hope it doesn't either. That's my wish too. Like, I completely understand that. I hate spending so much time making one video because I want to move on to the next. I have a lot of dreams, a lot of ideas, so I completely sympathize with you, bro. I absolutely agree. I hope it doesn't take that long next time either, and I'm doing stuff to hopefully shorten the amount of time it takes without shortening the quality.
Yeah, and you're still figuring out how to do it and how to do it well, and like you said, you're doing it by yourself, and the types of videos that you do take a heavy amount of editing, so a learning curve is understandable,
Yeah. So, yeah. Kind of want to move on for that. My question is, what's your favorite memory about Disneyland? Because Disneyland means a lot to both of us, and it kind of gives us a little insight into who you are as a person, who we are as siblings, how that affects our view on things.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, you would know, my memory's not the greatest, but I'd say Disneyland is one of the more impactful and impressionable memories for me. Mm-hmm. It was probably the best vacations that we went on is when we would go to California and we visit family and we go to Disneyland. It was the most exciting times as a child for me. It's what I looked forward to the most. But I remember one time after we had watched all of the Indiana Jones movies, and it was my first time as like an older kid. Not like old, but like I must have been like 12 or something. Going to Disneyland, and I had a huge crush on Indiana Jones, and I was just like, can we please ride Indiana Jones every single day? And we never did. And then the last day, we would go to Indiana Jones, and I was so happy, and it's been my favorite ride ever since. I love that ride so much. It's so much fun, and I still love you, Harrison Ford. You're amazing. And Indiana Jones is amazing. So that's, like, my favorite ride at Disneyland.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I love that one. That one's so much
fun.
It's so fun. Yeah, and it's, like, it's really nice to know, as a fan of Disneyland, like, I love the other Disney parks, but I think I will continue to go to Disneyland over Walt Disney World, like, even with the option between the two. And it's just so nice to know that there's something like that only at Disneyland, at least right now. Like, they have a ride that's kind of like it, that uses the same system. It's like Dinosaur or something like that. But it just isn't the same experience, and it's one of the best, like, according to a lot of people, not just me, it's one of the best rides in the world, Disney park rides in the world. And that's saying a lot. So, like, the fact that you can only find that experience at Disneyland is mind-blowing.
And the fact that it's still fun for me as, like, an adult to go on that ride, it's still just as much fun. Especially when you ride it 20 times in a row when the park's about to close. That's the best.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I have actually been on the Indiana Jones ride by myself as the only one in the vehicle. Which, by the way, don't do that. For some reason, it feels a lot worse. Yeah, and when the park is closed. So, like, I'll get on the ride right as the park is closing, and you can tell, like, they're upset about it, so I try not to do this, but, like, I get on it right as the park's closing, so, like, by the time I get off the ride, it's, like, 15 minutes after close. And I don't think they let you do that as much anymore, because I think their closing procedures are a lot more strict, because they used to let you, after the park closed, they used to let you, like, literally, like, take your time walking to Main Street, because Main Street stays open a little longer than the rest of the park for shopping.
Right.
You know, you used to be able to take your time, and when I say take your time, I mean, like, let's say your last ride was the Haunted Mansion. Like, you could walk all the way through the backwoods of Frontierland, all the way to Fantasyland, through Tomorrowland to the front gates, you know.
Yeah, they've
And
definitely gotten stricter.
yep.
I remember when I went with you last July and a group of our friends, we rode Indiana Jones several times in a row, and once, like, as the park was closing.
Yeah.
And we got off, and you were like, we can walk through Fantasyland.
In my defense, we could a month earlier, like literally a month earlier, because I was there a month earlier.
Yeah, and we like just missed it, and they were like a lot stricter about that. So that was kind of sad. Yeah,
and maybe it was that specific night or those specific people. I mean, Galaxy's Edge had just opened.
Galaxy's Edge had just opened, so it was a lot of like chaos from that.
Yeah, reservations only at that time, I think it was. So, like, they could just be regulating the amount of people that try to sneak off, you know. Which, I mean, is not our intention at all. We like, you can't go on anything. You can't go in any of the shops. You kind of just want to walk around and look at the atmosphere, because there's nothing like the Disney park at night when it's empty. And that's why I love walking through it. Like, I have lots of videos of just me in Fantasyland. And unfortunately, they're in portrait mode instead of landscape mode, so like I can't post them on YouTube because then they look weird with this one rectangle in the middle of the screen. You know, unless I zoomed in and lose all the quality, because I just have so many videos of that, because there's just something special and magical, not just about Disneyland at night, but when you're the only person, which is why, like, one of my dream jobs when I was younger, believe it or not, because I actually did work like this, is I wouldn't have mind being a janitor, you know, at Disneyland at night, because you'd go in and you'd clean everything at night when there's nobody else around but you, and you know, at least for a couple hours they keep on the music and they keep on the lights, so like I don't know if it's all night. I think it's all night because they have to do operating stuff at night. So like, but like, to be alone in Disneyland working would be a dream. I wouldn't mind scrubbing toilets for that. It'd be worth it.
Yeah, I bet you would. A good way to like get to go on like rides by yourself is if you like catch Fantasmic on the right day. Everybody's watching Fantasmic, and you can go ride Haunted Mansion or something, and it's usually pretty empty. So that's fun.
Oh yeah, fun story actually about this, and you can probably relate. Fantasmic 2.0 opened up in like 2017. You heard about that, right? Yep. I don't know if you've gotten to see it yet. Oh yeah, you did. We saw it in July.
Yeah.
You know, and it was this newfangled update to Fantasmic, and the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island have been closed for a very long time for restructuring it for the Edge of Galaxy's Edge to fit. And at the same time, they decided to revamp the Fantasmic show while they had the time and the empty space on their hands. And I was there for the day it premiered. Like, Fantasmic is my favorite show in any Disney park ever. I'm sorry, World of Color, Fantasmic is my favorite. There's just something about the actual costume characters and dances that takes the whole projection on water thing to a whole new level for me, even though it's not as big. You know, I just love that show so much. I adore it. I'm probably gonna make a video. What?
It's definitely my favorite show too.
Oh, you too? Dang. I'll probably make a video on it sometime, actually. So, I mean, I guess there's that to look forward to. But, sorry, long story short, is I was there on Fantasmic's opening day. It was just me, and I was so surprised. I was like, hey, I'm gonna try to see Fantasmic, and they had it only open up for FastPass people. And so I was like, sure, I'll grab a FastPass for it. So I grabbed a FastPass for it right before they were all sold out in the morning. And it was crowded as heck. I think it was one of the most crowded days ever. This was like June 2017. And it was just so insanely crowded. So like even like FastPass for Fantasmic filled up. And then overflow from the confusion of people who didn't have FastPasses who got it. And then like in the overflow seating that's not just for ticket people, it filled up. And by the grace of God, I managed to find one place for one person, and this is one of the benefits of going alone to Disneyland, is, like, it's so much easier to do everything, get on everything.
Squeeze in places.
Right. You don't necessarily need to stake a spot for everything. I've got perfect viewing on World of Color and Fantasmic from getting there last minute when it's just me, because you could literally squeeze in a space and ask, hey, is that space open? And they're like, actually, we have room for one more. Sometimes people are nice. But, you know, like, I saw the show and I was like, cool, I'm satisfied. So the next day, because I was there for like 3 days, I was like, the next day, I don't want to go to Fantasmic. I want to ride rides. I remember when we were younger that Fantasmic made it easier to go on all the rides. So I'm like, cool. So they had just introduced Fast Pass to Haunted Mansion, right? Mm-hmm. So this was the time, I don't remember, trips kind of get muddled together when you take so many. I can't remember if it was this trip or the trip before that they introduced Max Pass, which is reserving Fast Passes on your phone, but I had it. And I was like, cool, I'm going to reserve a Fast Pass so that the starting time of the Fast Pass, if I can, is right when Fantasmic is starting. So, like, there's nobody there. And I did it, and I went on the Haunted Mansion, and while I was in line to get into the stretching room to go on Haunted Mansion, I reserved another Fast Pass for the Haunted Mansion. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I was done with the ride, the next Fast Pass window had opened up, so I just got in line again. And I realized, oh my gosh, this might not be around forever. Like, they may, like, fix this bug in the future. Let me use this to my full effect. So I rode the Haunted Mansion, and I shouldn't have ridden it so many times because the song got stuck in my head and it kind of got a little old. And Haunted Mansion will never get old for me, but, like, for the next couple days I didn't go on it really all that much because of this. But, like, I rode it 18 times during the two showings of Fantasmic in a row without going on anything else. I think I went to Pirates once because one of the windows was like a 20-minute difference. And so I'm like, cool, I'll go on Pirates. I'm not sure, though. I think I went straight 18 times. And then another night, I went on Pirates and Haunted Mansion alternatively. So I tried it again the third night to see if it would work again. And that night, I definitely did alternate between Pirates and Haunted Mansion because I didn't have a Fast Pass. So I thought, cool. And so I timed it perfectly. Somehow, I don't know how I did it, I timed it perfectly to where, you know, the huge mobs when Fantasmic is over, like, you can't barely move because there's so many people going in the same direction. I timed it perfectly so that I was on the Haunted Mansion when that happened, and then on Pirates of the Caribbean when that happened. So, like, it was empty when I got back out. And I was like, this is... I gotta remember this. I don't think it worked as well the next time I tried it. But, sorry. That was a long story, but I thought it was crazy. I could not believe I got on one ride that many times in a row in such a short amount of time. Like, during the two showings of Fantasmic. Yeah, it is really fun. Yeah. I've got a lot of stories of Disneyland that over these different podcasts I'd love to share bits and pieces, because if I try to share a whole bunch of them now, I just talk for 3 hours straight, so... Little tidbits to look forward to next time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But anyway, so, I guess... that's the prompt for, like, do you have any stories like that, you specifically, that are like, you know, like, interesting, fascinating stuff that happened at Disneyland that you weren't expecting, that kind of, you know, that magic that you find as you go on the way?
Yeah. Well, I mean, interestingly, I haven't been to Disneyland a ton of times, but the times that I have went have been special enough to me that, you know, that doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. But this last time that we went was probably my favorite time that we've ever gone.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, it was just, well, I was an adult experiencing the parks for the first time. I wasn't a kid anymore. Right. And so there was a lot of, like, exploration, and I could go where I wanted to go, and experiencing it in a different way, because there's a difference between experiencing Disneyland as a child and as an adult, and they're both so special, and they're both magical, and they both bring out the child in you.
Yeah,
you know?
For sure.
But it was lots of fun, and honestly, I have some friends who, you know, don't like Disneyland or complain about it or something like that, and As far as, like, being a teenager or being an adult going to Disneyland, you get as much magic out of it as you are open to, as much as you're willing to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And when I go, I'm, like, there to suck all of the life out of it that I can. And I have lots of fun, and I have a blast. One of my favorite things is Newsies, the Broadway show. And when we went there, they had a little Newsies show in California Adventure, and I was just, like, so excited. And nobody knew that it was, like, what it was from. They were just like, these are newspaper people and they're dancing. But I was like, oh my gosh, it's the Newsies, and they sang one of the songs from the show, and I just flipped out. You and me both flipped out a little bit, I think. And one of the Disney photographers took some photos of us just because we were so excited.
Yeah, I have the pictures. Maybe I'll put them up.
I yelled at one of the dancers because he did this really cool pirouette, and I was like yelling at him, and he, like, looked at me, and you could tell he was like, you're having lots of fun, aren't you? And I was like, yes, I am. Probably more than some of the kids right now.
Yeah, the Red Car Trolley Newsboys. That's a great show. I think that's what it's called. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But, like, that show is just so fun because Buena Vista Street is themed to 1930s, and like, there's actual, like, replicas of the red car trolleys from the 30s, and it's just so atmospheric. It's such a great place to have a live show based on a 30s stories, like Newsies. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so much fun. But I was dancing and singing, and yeah, that's how you get the magic at Disneyland, is if you want the magic.
Oh yeah. And I think that's
and
why
members and characters and everybody there are so good at bringing you the magic. You know, you just have to want it.
Yeah, they love what they do, and I think that's why. That's an interesting point you should bring up, because I think that's why I love it so much. I think the first thing that I was told by literally everyone around me when I first got an annual pass was like, aren't you going to be bored? You're going to go to Disneyland all the time, and aren't you like going to get bored of it? And, you know, I visited Disneyland not as much as some people with annual passes, but much more than most people around me had the opportunity to do. And I loved it even more. And the reason why it never grew old for me was because I go in with that mindset of, I'm going to experience magic. I'm going to have fun. I don't care what happens. Like, I'm here to go where the Disney winds take me, as a channel I follow, Fresh Baked calls it, the Disney winds. I'm gonna go where they take me, and I think I get so much enjoyment out of Disneyland time and time again without you know, ever getting tired of it, because I adore Disney history. I adore Disney things and things that bore other people, you know, like the Enchanted Tiki Room, or Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, or, you know, all these things. Like, I go into it already loving those things, and already loving the history behind them, and knowing their significance, and knowing what they mean to the company, and knowing who put the stamp of their creativity on that particular product. And so when I go in, I get more magic from it because I'm expecting more magic. I'm going in knowing that I will receive something if I open myself up. And not, like, the worst thing that you could do at Disneyland is to make a plan and have to stick to it no matter what happens. Because chances are if you do that, you'll be disappointed. Yeah. Because your plan won't happen. So, like, being able to go with the flow and say, oh, this ride that I really wanted to go on right now, they're closed for temporary maintenance. Okay, well, I'll just go next door to this random little shop that I've never been into before and wait a little bit, because they said it'll be 5-10 minutes before it opens. So you go in and then you see a shop you've never seen before and like, wow, or you go order a treat and you would have never eaten this marshmallow tiger tail unless the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh was closed at that particular time. And suddenly you find a new favorite treat. Or you're going and you have 30 minutes to the parade and your friend's taking a spot and you need to pass the time. Well, yeah, that could be really boring and you could go on your phones and waste time that way. Or you could get up and you could go to the River Bell Terrace and get a bread bowl, you know, and discover the most amazing soup you've ever tasted, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all about what you choose to put into it. You're going to get back. And because of how much I adore Disney, how much research I've done, because of that, I put so much into it that I don't think I'll ever stop receiving a return on that. And in fact, I don't think I'll be able to go enough to receive the return for the investment I put into it, which is not a bad thing at all, because that always reminds me that no matter how many times I go back, no matter how much time I spend in Disneyland, whether it's every day because I work there, or once a month, or once every 2 months, or 3 times a month, or once a year, I will experience something amazing, no matter how many times I go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
That's
crazy.
special. Now you're making me miss Disneyland.
I'm sorry. Well, you know, if you need a surrogate to Disneyland, Fresh Baked, I'm sorry, I'm going to plug a channel I love, YouTube, we support each other. There's this channel I adore called Fresh Baked Disney, which does Disneyland vlogs, and right now Disneyland's closed because of what's going on right now. But they had a lot of footage from before it closed, and they put together what they call an acoustic walkthrough of Disneyland. So if you don't like vlogs, what they basically do is they just put the parks, and it's just them walking around the park, looking at all the sights and seeings, which is, you know, in person, you can go wherever you'd like and in whatever order you'd like and see whatever you'd like. But I mean, this is the next best thing, you know.
Right. And
they have 360 ride-throughs of like It's a Small World, and you know, there's just a lot of footage on there. So like, it'll be no substitute for the park itself, but at least it'll be something you can do in the interval that reminds you of it and fills that little piece of nostalgia. So, yeah.
That's so cool. Love Fresh Baked, man.
Yeah. I know that not everybody's into vlogs, so I thought that would be kind of interesting for them to know that they have an acoustic thing, too. I think they have a whole channel devoted to it. It's like Fresh Bake Acoustic or whatever. I'm not sure. I'd have to look that up. But, I mean, you gotta get your Disney fix somewhere. And that's where I get mine. So, yeah. Well, so, wow, I'm sorry I spent so long talking about that. And in the future, the next time we get on here to give people a sneak peek of what they might be able to hear and talk to, I wanted to talk about your Jedi Training Academy experiences and Samuel's. And then I also wanted to talk about how our brother views Disneyland and how he loves it just as much as us, but in a very interesting way. Like, he doesn't...
Different way.
Right, very different way. And I think that's a fascinating thing because it gives different perspectives on how different people can like the park the same but for different reasons, and how that affects the family dynamic, you know, how that makes your whole family view the experience differently because different parts of your family like different things. So when you go as a family, you do different things for those individual people here and there that you wouldn't normally do if you were going by yourself. So that's something I wanted to talk about the next time. Because there's a fascinating story about you and our brother at Jedi Training Academy, which I think is a hilarious and fun story.
Yeah. I'd love to do just a Q&A with you sometime about stuff like that. That'd be fun.
Oh, yeah, where I ask you questions and about, like, does it necessarily have to be about the Disney parks?
No, it can be anything.
Oh, neat. Oh, I would love to do that. Let's do that.
Because, you know, I'm a huge Disney fan, but I don't consume it in the same way that you do, so.
Right. I consume it a mile a minute. Guys, if you didn't know already, like I do right now, I literally research and talk about Disney and do research for other people for Disney, like almost 24/7 right now. When I'm not sleeping or eating or doing written work on my novels or whatever, I am writing or researching Disney. So, like, I live and breathe Disney. So I consume Disney and experience Disney in a very different way from a lot of other people. So, like, keep that in mind when I'm talking about stuff. Like, I come from that perspective of, like, sort of, like, everything lives and breathes Disney. But I have to be careful not to make it an obsession, because I love it so much that if I'm not careful, it can consume my life. Right now, it consumes the professional sphere of what I do in writing.
Whereas my perspective is probably more of, like, just your average Disney fan who just really enjoys it, you know?
Mm-hmm. But I can talk to you about that sort of stuff on that level because of our relationship and what I've talked to you about in the past. Like, it kind of has a common ground for understanding. So even when I talk about stuff, like, that's a little bit extra nerdy, like, it still clicks. Like, we still talk about that type of stuff a lot. Yeah. So the next topic I wanted to talk about today is we recently watched Frozen 2. Do you want to give your thoughts on Frozen 2, Charis? This is going to be a very fun, interesting topic, I think.
Sure. I mean, my thoughts probably aren't as in-depth as yours, but, yeah, my first impression after watching it was that, and while I was watching it, I was like, I kind of like this better than the first one. And not that I don't like the first one, but I just enjoyed the second one. The plot a little more. The music, the soundtrack overall of the first movie, I'd say is, like, better. It has a lot more, like, catchy songs to me. But Into the Unknown from Frozen 2 is probably the best song out of both movies. And it almost makes up for the soundtrack not being as good as the first one. It's so good. So really loved that. And I loved the use of, like, just similar musical motifs throughout the whole thing. It was really, it was really pretty.
The score really was very well thought out.
And, yeah, I thought it was visually even a little more enjoyable. I thought it was really cool, some of the visuals that they did with, like, water and ice and stuff like that. It was really cool. So I liked it better, but that was just me.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I think, in all honesty, the people that do watch this movie, I mean, I've seen a lot of people say, this sequel really isn't as good as everybody's cracking it out to be. But in my personal opinion, I think a great deal of people who do see this that don't necessarily talk about it as much will like this movie more. I don't know why. I think the reason has to do with the first one just being so overblown and overdone that even though it's a great movie, like, people just kind of got tired of it. So I think regardless, a lot of those people will appreciate the second one a bit more because it does a lot of things different, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to have the, like, the sequel disease that every sequel has, where it's just, like, trying so hard to be the first one, and then it's, like, really crappy because of that.
Yeah.
And it has no additional character development for just that movie itself, or take away character development from the first movie, but just builds off of it really well.
Yeah, this one does something different, and it also builds off the previous one. Like, it doesn't pretend like the first one didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, Cars 2 is, like, a textbook example of how not to do a sequel. It takes everything that people loved about the first, throws it out the window, basically acts like the first movie never happened, except for Lightning and Mater's friendship. Because they get rid of the Route 66 setting, they get rid of, all the character and relationship growth and all the things that made the plot happen in the first movie, and basically said, this stuff doesn't exist, we're going to explore the rest of the world in car form, and we're going to do spies. And so, like, Frozen 2, like, avoided that by, like, not necessarily taking what from the original was good and doing it again, but, like, they didn't pretend like the first movie didn't exist. Like, they took elements from the first movie and expanded them.
Yeah, it was still able to stand as its own thing. If a sequel can stand by itself as, like, a good movie, where someone coming in who hasn't seen the first one or hasn't seen it for a while, and it's still, like, a good movie, and it's understandable and enjoyable, and the characters are still developed, well, that's when you know it's a good movie.
Yeah, for sure. And I have to agree with you about Into the Unknown. I don't know, something about that song just gave me chills. Like, and I haven't heard it since we watched the movie, and I really want to hear it again. So I have to listen to it again.
Here's my little thing, because I'm a musical theater nerd. That's my nerd realm. And it's just such a good protagonist main song. And in Dina Menzel, her vocals, she hit it way out of the park. It's so good. It's so powerful. And then even Panic at the Disco, Brendan Urie's cover, same key, might I mention, and he's in
same key is what you said
the whole time.
I couldn't hear.
Which, if you don't know, is really hard for a guy to be in a mixed voice up that high. Insane.
Oh wow.
That's all I have to say. And
Sorry,
it's really fun because it's like a rock take on it a little bit of a twist, and so it's a good cover.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you said at first. Did you say he had the same tone, or what did you say?
He was in the same key as Adina.
Oh, same key. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, see, I know nothing about music except that I like it, so.
Yeah, but that's, like, impossible. First of all, Idina Menzel was already in a really high key for a female, and then Brendan did it in the same key, and he's a male. That's just not a thing that happens very much.
Yeah, well, it's Brendan Urie, and if I know anything about him, which I do listen to his music a lot, he can do that, so, because it's Brendan Urie. But, yeah, and then the other song that really caught my eye, too, like, I don't know why, I loved this song so much, and that was Olaf's song, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but, like, I think they've kind of accepted that, like, Olaf's a part of meme culture, and they kind of, like, make him in the movie sort of like a living meme, which is great, and it's, like, not done cheesily, though, like, it's done in a tasteful manner, you know, and, like, that song embodies...
It's a song about, like, adulthood and how no adults have it together. And it's just funny because kids are not going to get it at all, but they're going to see it and see all this, like, crazy stuff happening and laugh at it and think it's hilarious. And then the adults watching it are going to be like, oh my gosh, this is really funny. And then the young adults watching it are going to be like, this is me. This is literally me right now.
I found it so relatable. Like, spoiler ahead, the song, I don't know what it's called, but, like, the main lyric is, "This will all make sense when I am older," because Olaf thinks that when you grow up, you gain the maturity to, like, understand everything, which is hilarious, because that's exactly what children think. They think their parents know everything, when their parents are, like, people, and they don't know everything. But, like, children think that adults know everything, and, you know, there's that line in the movie where he's... where he's talking to Anna, and he's like, you know everything because you're older. And I thought they were just gonna leave it at that, but, like, the whole song is, like, nothing's making sense, and Olaf is just trying to keep it together by reminding himself that when he grows up, he'll understand it. And it's just... because... it's so funny, because you know, as an adult, especially a young adult, that you don't. That it doesn't get any easier. It doesn't make any more sense. And that's why the song is so good.
I love that they covered that subject. They're like, you know, we should do with one of the songs, we should do this. I just love that they decided to do that.
It's just so brilliant. And I thought, like, Olaf would just be, like, cheap comedy relief, because I kind of felt like after the first movie, like, how could you do anything else with him? And a lot of the shorts give me that vibe. You know, like Olaf's Frozen Adventure or whatever, or Frozen Fever. They give me, like, Olaf's just thrown in for quick gags, but, no, like, he's actually funny and original. And the jokes he has aren't, like, recycled, like, puns. They're, like story-driven humor.
Yeah. That's well done.
Yeah,
really well
it's real done. And my only gripe about the movie is I kind of feel like I think the reason why the first one just kind of clicked with a lot of audiences was because the first one had really good pacing, and the first one was a very tightly told story. And even though some of it didn't make sense and like some of it felt rushed, like it all moved forward at a certain cadence that kind of rolled the audience along with it. It's this intangible quality that you actually see a lot in Disney movies, where like great examples are Toy Story or Beauty and the Beast, where you don't feel like any part of it is unnecessary or just there for filler. Like every part like leads perfectly into the next scene, and it kind of rolls along to where the audience doesn't have time to necessarily acknowledge faults in the film, because the next thing happens at a great timing, at a perfect timing. So like, even though there was a lot of stuff wrong with the first Frozen, logic-wise, a lot of people didn't notice until like after the film had been out for a while, because every time you watched it, you would kind of just be carried along at a fast enough pace to where it didn't matter.
That's really true.
Whereas in this second Frozen, I felt like it made much more sense and the story was much more well thought out, but it was missing that cadence. Meaning that there were some things that I felt like happened out of nowhere, or I felt like, but I liked them, so it didn't matter. So like, unlike the first Frozen, it was kind of like the inverse, where like the story switches tone and mood a lot, and it really doesn't flow as well. Like things could be showed in a slightly different order or things like that, and it wouldn't affect too much. But it would, every minute of it was.
The first one was definitely a little better.
Yeah, but the reason why I didn't care about that much in this movie is like, unlike the first movie, I didn't really. Even though stuff didn't make sense sometimes, I really enjoyed every minute of it. So even though I had more time to notice flaws because of the pacing, in the second movie I didn't care because it was fun. And I really liked a lot of it. And some of the moments where you're like, eye roll, like this is ridiculous and stupid, you still have, I think if people were being honest, they'd still have like a guilty pleasure of liking it, because like a great example is Kristoff's song. I could probably know quite a few people who would roll their eyes and think it's ridiculous and stupid, but then go home and be like, that was funny. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
That's a good point. All right, well, I hope you don't mind, but I probably should get going soon.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm sorry that took so long. Next time it won't take so long because I won't talk so much.
No, that was really fun. I'm glad we got to talk about something that we both love.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to hear both of our perspectives, so.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, and this is just so the audience knows, I don't know necessarily how much Charis can do this, so we'll have to talk about that when we're done with this, but goal...
It's something I'd definitely be interested in doing again.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah, but the goal, regardless of who I'm doing it with, the goal is to have one of these podcasts every week. And if I have to have it with someone different, so be it. But like, I would like to have Charis back on, and I would like to do these more often. And these are just the intent of this before she gets off. The intent of this, Charis, is no matter who I'm doing it with, and I'm hoping it's you more than often because, well, I just really gel with you really well. But the goal of this is to provide a little more personal insight into like my day-to-day life and how it relates to what I do and to Disney. And, I see a lot of other podcasts where people get on and they interview people, or they talk about, even like Disney podcasts, they talk about like, when they talk about super technical things, they like pick apart stuff. And I kind of wanted to provide a podcast that gives a little more of an atmosphere of just two friends talking about stuff they like, even though they have knowledge about certain things, like for you, music, and for me, like the behind the scenes stuff of Disney. Like, it's still providing a more personal atmosphere of just friends chilling and talking about what we like. So yeah, I thought a more relaxed atmosphere than my regular video essays and stuff would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll get to do this again soon.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully
right.
sooner than later. All right.
Yeah.
Well.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, see you later. Thanks guys for tuning in.